A very handsome millionaire groom stood up, raised his glass of champagne, and announced he was in love with someone else at his engagement ceremony. In front of hundreds of stunned guests, he publicly dumped his black fiancée to chase after a blonde woman smiling triumphantly across the room. But what he didn't know was that the woman he just humiliated was the one who had already laid a trap that would destroy everything he had built. What she did next will leave you speechless. The luxury ballroom was filled with elegant guests when Logan stood up, champagne glass in hand. He looked at Celeste, sitting next to him in an ivory wedding dress that had taken months to make, and then looked across the room to where Sienna was smiling expectantly. "I have an important announcement," Logan declared, his voice echoing through the sound system. "I know you all came to celebrate my engagement to Celeste, but," he paused dramatically, "actually, there's been a change of plans." A murmur rippled through the room. Celeste froze, her smile faltering as Logan continued, "I have recently realized that my heart belongs to someone else." He held out his hand towards Sienna, who rose gracefully from her table. "Sienna and I are in love. She is the one I want to build my future with. I hope everyone can understand and support our decision." The silence that followed was deafening. 200 pairs of eyes alternated between Logan's imposing figure, Sienna's triumphant smile, and Celeste, who remained motionless, like a statue carved in dignity and pain. Celeste Morgan was 32 years old and had a brilliant career as a neurosurgeon. She never imagined that her 2-year engagement would end in public humiliation during what was supposed to be her engagement party, the party she had planned meticulously, the party her family had traveled to from 3 different states for. A photographer hired for the event captured the exact moment when Sienna stood next to Logan, her long blonde hair contrasting with her sun-kissed skin. The flash illuminated Celeste's face, revealing not tears, but something more disturbing, an expression of grim recognition, as if part of her had been expecting this moment. Celeste's father, a respected university professor, stood up abruptly. "Did you plan this?" His voice thundered. "Invite us here to humiliate my daughter?" Logan smiled condescendingly. "Mr. Morgan, it wasn't personal. Sometimes the heart simply chooses another path. I'm sure Celeste understands." That was when Celeste finally moved. With disconcerting calm, she stood up, adjusted her dress, and looked directly at Logan. "Actually, Logan, I understand perfectly." Her voice, soft but firm, silenced the room. "I understand who you really are. And I always have." A flash of uncertainty crossed Logan's face. "Celeste, dear," her mother began, worried. "It's all right, Mother." Celeste smiled, a genuine smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Some revelations are inevitable. And others," she paused, looking meaningfully at Sienna, "are just a matter of time." Then, with the dignity of a queen, Celeste walked toward the exit. She didn't run. She didn't cry. She walked as if she were walking away not just from that room, but from an entire chapter of her life. At the door, she turned one last time. The invitation to the party mentioned a celebration. "I think there are still reasons to celebrate. Just not the ones we expected." Her eyes met Logan's for a moment. "Enjoy your evening, Logan. Enjoy Sienna. Enjoy everything, while you can." The way she said those words sent a chill down the spine of some of the guests. There was no obvious anger, just a disturbing certainty. That night, as she drove home in the rain that had begun to fall, Celeste allowed a single tear to roll down her cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness, but of relief. The pieces were finally falling into place. The secret email she had discovered months ago, the late phone calls, the elaborate excuses. What Logan and Sienna didn't know was that behind the seemingly devastated woman was a brilliant mind that had already connected all the dots long before the public humiliation. What they couldn't imagine was that Celeste wasn't just walking away from that party. She was marching steadily toward a plan that had been in motion for weeks. As the windshield wipers swept away the rain, Celeste touched the small flash drive hidden in her purse. Inside was evidence that could change everything, evidence she had decided not to use, hoping Logan would do the right thing. Now, however, the rules had completely changed. Sometimes, she murmured to herself, justice needs a little help. If this story of betrayal and dignity in the face of humiliation touched your heart, Be sure to subscribe to this channel to find out how public humiliation became the catalyst for justice that no one would ever forget, and how the man who thought he was conquering the world ended up losing everything that really mattered. 3 weeks after the incident at the luxury ballroom, Celeste's life seemed to have spiraled downward. Her professional social media page was flooded with malicious comments spread by anonymous sources suggesting she had forged her medical degree. At the hospital where she worked, rumors about her emotional stability began to circulate. Some patients even requested to be transferred to another doctor. Her phone vibrated with a notification, an article in the City Chronicle highlighting the new couple of the moment, Logan and Sienna, described as soulmates finally united after years of friendship. The article mentioned in passing that Logan had broken off a previous engagement, without even naming Celeste. "Unbelievable," muttered Natalie, Celeste's colleague and head of the hospital's legal department, as she swiped her finger across the screen. They were sitting in a discreet cafe 3 blocks from the hospital. "This is defamation by association. These anonymous rumors have his fingerprints all over them." Celeste remained calm, stirring her cup of tea. "He controls the City Chronicle, Natalie. This is just the beginning." Natalie frowned. "How are you so composed?" "If this were me, because I know Logan," Celeste interrupted. "He's always been predictable in his arrogance." Celeste's cell phone vibrated again. A message from Logan. "Hope you're well. Just wanted to check if you could return the watch I gave you last Christmas. It has sentimental value in my family. Sienna would love to wear it." Natalie choked on her coffee. "He didn't do that." "He did," Celeste replied, placing her phone on the table. "And it was exactly what I expected." For the first time since the incident, a genuine smile appeared on Celeste's face. She opened her briefcase and took out a small notebook. "6 months ago, I discovered emails between Logan and Sienna. They weren't just romantic emails. There were bank transfers, property records, and discussions about an offshore company called Nexus Ventures." "The company that's buying up shares in the hospital?" Natalie asked, leaning forward. "Precisely. Logan is using money embezzled from his family's charitable foundation to finance acquisitions. He's hidden it very well, except that." Celeste slid a flash drive across the table. "What's that?" Natalie picked up the device, examining it. "Logan isn't just predictable in his arrogance, but also in his negligence," Celeste said, raising her cup to her lips. "He's always used the same password for everything, his mother's birthday followed by victory. And he always leaves his laptop open when he takes a shower." Natalie's eyes widened. "You've had all this since?" "Since I found the first email," Celeste confirmed. "I didn't act on it right away because, well, I still believed he could change." Celeste paused, her gaze distant for a moment. "I really loved him, Natalie." It was the only time her voice faltered, briefly revealing the pain behind her composure. "But there are limits to forgiveness," she continued, quickly regaining her focus. "What he did at the engagement party was just the catalyst." "So what's the plan?" Natalie asked, her expression now as determined as Celeste's. "We're going to need Elliot Ramsey, a brilliant financial analyst and Celeste's old friend from medical school who had dropped out to pursue finance, had become an expert at detecting corporate fraud. He currently worked for the Securities and Exchange Commission. He'll need irrefutable evidence," Natalie warned. "And that's exactly what we have," Celeste replied. "But Logan needs to dig his own grave a little deeper first." That same evening, Logan was at a charity dinner with Sienna looking stunning by his side. His phone vibrated with a reply from Celeste. "Sure, Logan. The watch is safe. Can we meet tomorrow so I can give it back to you? I also have a few other things of yours." He smiled smugly. Celeste had always been reasonable. It was one of the qualities he appreciated in her, and it would be nice to close that chapter once and for all. Sienna, standing next to him, looked uncomfortable. Was that her? "Yes. She's returning the Peck watch tomorrow." "You actually asked for that watch back?" Sienna looked horrified. "Logan, business is business, honey," he replied, kissing her on the cheek. "Besides, it looks much better on you." What Logan didn't realize, as he raised his glass for another toast, was that Celeste was meticulously constructing the perfect trap, one that would use his own arrogance and sense of invulnerability against him. 2 days later, Elliot leafed through the documents Celeste had gathered, whistling softly. "This is incredibly detailed," he said, impressed. "But we need more. We need a confession. Or at least catch him red-handed." "That's why I'm taking the job," Celeste replied calmly. Natalie and Elliot exchanged confused glances. "What job?" Natalie asked. "The position of medical director of the new hospital wing sponsored by Nexus Ventures." Celeste showed them the email she had received that morning. "Logan wants to keep me close, under control. He thinks I'm vulnerable and grateful for any opportunity after the rumors he spread." "It's a trap," Elliot warned. "Yes," Celeste agreed with a determined smile, "but not for me." The phone rang. It was Logan. "Celeste, I hope you received my recommendation for the position. It's the least I can do, considering, well, everything. No hard feelings, right?" His voice exuded false generosity, the voice of a man who believed he was in complete control, a man who thought he had broken her and was now offering crumbs as a gesture of magnanimity. "No hard feelings, Logan," Celeste replied, her voice perfectly controlled as she signaled to Elliot to record the call. "In fact, I look forward to working with you again. I'm sure it will be enlightening." As she ended the call, Celeste realized her plan was just getting started. Logan had rejected Celeste Morgan, the woman, but he had no idea what a fatal mistake he had made in underestimating Celeste Morgan, the strategist. What he didn't know was that while he was celebrating his apparent victory, the first dominoes of his downfall had already begun to fall. And at the next hospital board meeting, Logan would discover that there are consequences far more severe than a broken heart, consequences that no amount of money or privilege could prevent. The hospital board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. At 8:45, Celeste entered the imposing building wearing an elegant burgundy ensemble that accentuated her confident posture. She carried a black briefcase and a tablet. In the distance, she saw Logan walking alongside Sienna, both impeccably dressed, talking to Dr. Franklin, the board chairman. Natalie and Elliot were already strategically positioned, Natalie as the hospital's legal representative and Elliot as a guest financial advisor. The plan was in motion. "Celeste," Logan exclaimed when he saw her. "It's so good to see you looking so recovered." "Thank you for this opportunity, Logan," Celeste replied. "I look forward to contributing to the new wing of the hospital." The boardroom quickly filled, 12 important members, including major shareholders and directors. Logan, as representative of Nexus Ventures, occupied a prominent position. "Before we proceed with the official agenda," Celeste announced calmly, rising to her feet, "I would like to present some important findings regarding the financing of the new wing." Logan frowned but kept his social smile. "I'm sorry, but that's not on the agenda." "Actually," Natalie interjected, distributing folders to the board members, "as the hospital's legal advisor, I requested this edition last night. It must have slipped your attention." Dr. Franklin, intrigued, opened his folder. "What is this about?" "Evidence of embezzlement from the Carrington Charitable Foundation to finance Nexus Ventures," Celeste replied, her voice perfectly controlled. "And more proof that Mr. Carrington planned to use the new hospital wing for money laundering." Logan's face drained of color. "This is absurd. A pathetic attempt at revenge by a jilted fiancée." "The documents speak for themselves," Celeste continued, activating the room's projector. "We have emails between Mr. Vihane and Ms. Blake discussing explicitly how to divert funds through overpricing medical equipment." Screenshots of the emails appeared on the screen with excerpts highlighted. "We need to make sure the hospital doesn't know the real value of the equipment. We can inflate it by at least 40% and direct the difference to the Cayman account," written by Logan 3 months earlier. Elliot took the floor as a representative of the Securities and Exchange Commission. "I confirm that we have already opened a formal investigation into these transactions." Panic seized Logan. "This is an invasion of privacy. These emails were obtained illegally." Natalie smiled. "Actually, they were obtained from the company computer owned by the Vihane Foundation during a regular audit, perfectly legal." "And there's more," added Celeste, sliding her finger across the tablet. Recordings of the last 3 meetings where Logan detailed the scheme to Sienna. The audio filled the room. It was unmistakably Logan's voice explaining how they would use the new wing to clean up millions. Sienna stood up abruptly. "I didn't know the extent of this," she said, pale. "I thought it was just legal financial adjustments." "Are you abandoning me now?" Logan hissed, incredulous. "Don't be a coward, Logan," Celeste replied calmly. "You planned this meticulously. Be man enough to take responsibility." Dr. Franklin, visibly shaken, spoke up. "This meeting is adjourned. I will immediately contact our lawyers and the appropriate authorities." Logan, desperate, tried to reach his phone. Elliot made a subtle gesture, and 2 federal agents entered the room. "Logan Carrington," one of them announced, "you are under arrest for questioning in connection with financial fraud, embezzlement of charitable funds, and money laundering." As the agents escorted him out, Logan fixed a look of pure hatred on Celeste. "You ruined my life," he growled. Celeste remained impassive. "No, Logan. You ruined your own life when you decided that people were disposable. When you decided that I was disposable." In the hallway, as everyone watched in shock, Sienna approached Celeste hesitantly. "I really didn't know everything." "Maybe not," Celeste replied, "but you knew enough to choose to be a part of it. You'll both have to live with the consequences of your choices." As the room emptied, Dr. Franklin remained, watching Celeste with a mixture of admiration and caution. "Impressive, Dr. Morgan. But I wonder, was this always about justice? Or was there a personal element?" Celeste calmly gathered her documents. "Justice is always personal to those who have been wronged, Dr. Franklin. But unlike Logan, I have never allowed my personal feelings to compromise my professional ethics." She walked toward the door, pausing briefly before leaving. What no one in this room has realized today is that this wasn't just about a man who publicly rejected a woman. It was about a system that allows people like Logan to believe they can use and discard others without consequence. Today, that system began to change. 6 months had passed since that fateful board meeting. Autumn was coloring the trees on the university campus where Celeste now gave a lecture on medical ethics. News of the scandal involving Logan Carrington and Nexus Ventures had spread like wildfire throughout the medical and business communities, becoming a case study in law schools across the country. And so, Celeste concluded, looking out at the attentive faces of her students, integrity is not just an abstract concept, but the fundamental basis of any truly humane medical practice. After the lecture, Dr. Helena Cruz, the new chair of the hospital board, approached her. "Impressive as always, Dr. Morgan," she said, handing her an envelope. "The board has unanimously approved your proposal for the Accessible Neurological Research Center. You will have complete autonomy over the project." Celeste smiled, feeling the weight of her achievement. The center she had always dreamed of creating would finally become a reality, a place where patients of all ethnic backgrounds and social classes would have access to advanced neurological treatments. "What about Carrington?" Helena asked as they walked down the hall. "I hear the final hearing is next week." Celeste replied, "The prosecution has a solid case." What they both knew, but didn't mention, was how Logan's life had fallen apart spectacularly in recent months. After his arrest, the Carrington Foundation collapsed as investors and partners withdrew their support en masse. His mansion, cars, and possessions had been seized as part of the federal investigation. The stocks of companies associated with him plummeted. The next day, as Celeste reviewed documents in her new office, her phone vibrated with a notification from the City Chronicle. Logan Carrington sentenced to 12 years for financial fraud and embezzlement. Below the headline, a photograph showed Logan being escorted out of the courthouse, his hair disheveled, his suit ill-fitting, so different from the imposing figure who had once publicly humiliated Celeste. Malik, the hospital security guard who had always greeted her with respect even on the most difficult days, knocked on the open door. "Dr. Morgan, you have a visitor." To her surprise, it was Sienna Blake, not the Sienna of 6 months ago with expensive jewelry and unshakable confidence, but a visibly defeated woman with dark circles under her eyes. "Can I come in?" she asked hesitantly. Celeste motioned to the chair in front of her. Sienna sat down, looking nervously at her hands. I made a deal with the DA, she explained. Witness protection in exchange for a reduced sentence. She paused. I have to do community service for 2 years. They suggested here, at the hospital. And you came to ask me to intervene? Celeste asked, her tone calm but firm. No, Sienna replied, surprising her. I came to apologize, and to say that I'll take any assignment, even the most difficult ones. Celeste studied the woman in front of her, the same woman who had smiled triumphantly while she was humiliated in front of 200 people. The burn unit needs volunteers, she finally said. The work is hard, emotionally draining, and requires genuine commitment. You start on Monday. After Sienna left, Natalie entered with a bottle of champagne. To celebrate Carrington's condemnation? Celeste asked, raising an eyebrow. To celebrate you, Natalie corrected, pouring 2 glasses. For turning a public humiliation into an opportunity to do great good. That night, Celeste visited her parents. Her father, always proud but now with tears in his eyes, hugged her tightly. When you walked out of that party with such dignity, he said, I knew something extraordinary would happen. But I never imagined you would expose a criminal scheme and save an entire hospital. Her mother smiled, holding her hands. The strength you showed didn't come from anger or a desire for revenge, she observed. It came from your commitment to truth and justice. A month later, Celeste inaugurated the Center for Accessible Neurological Research. As she cut the ribbon, her gaze briefly met Sienna's in the background, dressed in her volunteer uniform, watching her with a mixture of respect and regret. On the same day, thousands of miles away, Logan Carrington was being transferred to the federal prison where he would serve his sentence. No family, no friends, no fortune, just the time necessary to contemplate how his arrogance and prejudice had destroyed everything he valued. Justice had manifested itself not as revenge but as the natural consequence of poor choices. And Celeste had prospered, not despite rejection, but because of the strength she discovered within herself when she was forced to pick herself up. As she walked down the hallway of her new medical center, Celeste reflected on how public humiliation had become the catalyst for creating something that would help thousands of people for decades to come. Sometimes, she thought, the worst experiences lead us to the most extraordinary places, but only when we choose to turn pain into purpose. Logan rejected Celeste because of her color, but he ended up regretting it, too late. Because in trying to diminish her, he gave her the momentum she needed to reach heights he, in his arrogance, could never imagine. It wasn't his fall that marked his defeat, but her rise that proved that true power never lies in the hands of those who discriminate, but in those who persevere with dignity and purpose. If this story touched your heart, and you believe that the best response to discrimination is success and excellence, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more powerful narratives that show how sometimes those who try to bring us down end up being just stepping stones on our journey to greatness.